I am on a curiosity voyage, and I need my paddles to travel. These books are my paddles.
5 at a time.
Are you shitting me?
Excuse me?
What the hell is that?
Mr. Anderson!
I need my paddles!
What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. As you can tell from the title, today's video is going to be a books I recommend if you like Stranger Things type of video. Boyfriend and I just finished volume 1 of season 4 and it's amazing. It's very dark this season. We are eagerly anticipating volume 2. So I figure in the meantime it would be really fun to give you guys books that you could read if you're wanting that vibe. Also, I'm wearing my Dirty Dancing t-shirt. I don't own any Stranger Things merch, so this is gonna have to do for 80s. So the first recommendation I have for you is Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan. This is a series of comics, graphic novels. It follows 4 girls. They are all friends. I think it's like the night after Halloween, and they discover an alternate dimension. There are aliens, but there's also robots. It's basically like an all-girl Stranger Things. That's what it kind of reminds me of. There are at least 2 omnibuses of all the comics sort of compiled together. I borrowed those back when I worked at the bookstore. I remember checking those 2 out and just thinking they were so cool. Also, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer vibes. Girls, like teenage girls kicking butt. And I just found out as I was doing a little bit of research for this video, they're making it a TV show. I don't know on like what network it's gonna be on. I don't know when it's coming out. There are about 30 issues, like 30 comics that you can read. I'm not sure how many like episodes that's gonna translate into, but whenever it comes out, I'm all over it. Next recommendation is one of my favorites. This has to be probably the coolest cover for a book I've maybe ever seen. It's My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. I remember, again, checking this one out at the bookstore and just being, well, first of all, so mesmerized by that cover, but then the story obviously sounded kind of like a campy 80s horror movie that you might watch. So it takes place in 1988. It follows Abby and Gretchen. They are best friends, I think sophomores in high school. They go out skinny dipping at the lake one night. Gretchen starts acting very weird the next day, and Abby's sort of conclusion based on her behavior is that she's been possessed. So basically the storyline follows Abby's investigation into what the heck's going on with her best friend, how to save her, kind of an ode to friendship, but with all the 80s vibes in there. I am very pleased to say there's also a movie adaptation happening for this one. It says on IMDb that it's in post-production, so I don't know when it's coming out, but I'm super, super pumped for that one. Also, all of Grady Hendrix's books are amazing. I highly recommend them. He definitely knows the horror genre very well. I also recommend from him Horror Store, which is, it basically takes place in sort of an IKEA type like furniture store, but it's haunted. There are things happening, things going bump in the night, and so the employees decide to stay overnight to figure out what's going on because the security cameras aren't catching anything. So that one's really cool. It's set up like an IKEA manual, like a furniture manual. It's really clever. The next recommendation I have gives more Scooby-Doo vibes, but I feel like Stranger Things kind of gives off Scooby-Doo vibes sometimes too. It's Meddling Kids by Edward Cantero. This follows a group of kids who reunite in their mid-20s to reopen a case that they thought that they solved when they were kids. It also sort of has like a Lovecraftian kind of vibe to it, which I feel like the cover kind of references very subtly. I remember there was a haunted house, so if you like spooky things, I feel like you'll like that one. My next recommendation is The Saturday Night Book Club by Craig Davidson. This one also takes place in the 80s. It follows Jake, who's the main character. He's kind of a loner, spends a lot of his time with his uncle, who sort of collects old dusty artifacts and is kind of a conspiracy theorist. He's a bit of an oddball. Doesn't really have a lot of friends, but then 2 new kids move into town. Jake befriends them, and then together they start the Saturday Night Book Club. It's sort of a coming of age story. Basically, as the summer goes on, this little project that they have going on kind of turns into something a little bit more sinister than what they first anticipated that it was going to be. This one's definitely more lighthearted than the most recent season of Stranger Things, which is kind of pretty dark and psychological. Saturday Night Book Club and Meddling Kids, I will say, are definitely more lighthearted, so if you're wanting like light horror, those 2 are probably going to be your best bet. Next up, an adult book series, like adult science fiction, fantasy. trilogy is the Wormwood Trilogy by Tade Thompson. These are really, really good. I remember reading the blurb for Rosewater and thinking it sounded so cool. Basically, this dome comes down over a town in Nigeria, and it seems to possess healing properties. So if you're within a certain, a certain vicinity of the dome, you can be healed. A lot of people are being, their ailments are being cured. But Caro, our main character, has psychic abilities. I won't get into too much detail. I don't want to ruin anything. But what's happening with people who already have some sort of special ability is that this dome is killing them. So Caro is assigned by the Nigerian government to investigate what the heck's going on. Also, I definitely recommend the audiobook of this one because it's narrated by a Nigerian, so you get that accent, which is really cool. It's also very political, which normally I don't mind. Like, one of my favorite books is 1984 by George Orwell, which is very political. But this one, it definitely has some slow stretches, especially once you get into like the second and the third book, so beware of that. If you like politics though, you might really find that even more interesting. And then my final recommendation, this is just sort of a bonus recommendation, anything by Jeff Vandermeer. All of his stuff is pretty wacky. He's basically considered the king of speculative fiction nowadays. I feel like his most famous series is the Southern Reach Trilogy, which the movie Annihilation with Natalie Portman is based off of. I did read those three, and they're pretty cool. They're pretty wacky, they're very different, a little bit disturbing, sometimes lots of disturbing. Very surreal. You can tell that he's like obsessed with animals and insects and aliens and just like anatomy. There's a lot of like body horror involved with those. So anything by him, I feel like if you like that sort of Stranger Things weird vibe, the sort of demigorgon, human-esque but also very much alien creature, then you will probably like anything Jeff Vandermeer writes. Speaking of him, I always have his, he has some of the coolest covers, so I have a lot of his books on display. I haven't read this one yet. This is which series is this from? This is the City of Saints and Madmen series, but he just has some of the coolest, at least the UK versions of the covers are some of the coolest. You kind of get the vibe just from those covers of how weird some of his stuff is. But that's it, those are my recommendations. You guys let me know, have you read anything or watched any films recently that give you that vibe? Because I'm all about that. Goonies, like E.T., 1980s, like ragtag, team of kids getting into trouble sort of story I'm obsessed with. So yes, give me recommendations if you guys have any. Let me know if you've read any of these and what you think, and I will see you next time. Bye.